Hello and welcome to this video. Now today I'll be sharing with you this watch. This is my third modified Seiko style watch. In a previous video I had a look over the Grey Dawn example here, the Grey Dawn version that I made as my second. Please keep an eye out for that video. It's worth reminding you though that these two started off looking like this. These are eBay SKX kind of clones. They are referred to as Sharky SKXs. However, they are not the Heimdaller Sharky, which I think is slightly better quality. Although the only thing I've used from those watches, especially in this one, is really just the case, the crown and the movement. Everything else in this watch is actually different. So I'm going to go through the full mod list here, including the costs. But I wanted to give you an overview first of why this watch exists and why I actually wanted to make a watch in this color scheme. And that links to my other passion, which is cars. And this is a Porsche Boxster S 981, which I had bought a few months ago now. And, you know, I absolutely love cars. And this was my first proper sports car. And actually the car that I had before was a GT86, and I've kind of upgraded to this recently. I'm super proud of that. And I wanted to actually make a watch that matches the car, because you can get Porsche design watches, but they are a little weird looking, not very interesting. And also a lot of them don't actually match the car very well. I decided to make this watch to be based on the color scheme of this car. So going through here, just to show off that kind of connection, is the dial here is the Namoki Grey dial, which actually looks very similar to the Agate Grey Porsche color, which is on the obviously on the bodywork. I've used the black ceramic Yachtmaster insert because of course there are black bits on the car, there are the tires and so on and things like that. I've also used a completely polished case to sort of show the kind of flashiness of the car, so to speak, and also some of the interior parts are this nice polished silver finish. And finally, the thing that makes this watch stand out quite a lot, I guess, is the strap. And this is a strap from WatchGecko. I think it's the Kington racing strap or motorsport strap. I'll have to find you the link and put it in the description. And this matches the red leather interior in my car beautifully. I've also, of course, got the red seconds hand to match this as well. So that was the kind of reason I wanted to make this watch. And I think that's a really nice idea for somebody who's into modding watches already or is considering starting out. This watch is very personal to me because of its connection to my car, you know, and I'm sure a lot of you guys watching are also interested in technology, engineering, things like that. You might be motorsport fans yourself, or even sports fans like football fans and things. I was tempted to make a Leeds United watch actually to represent the team that I support, because, you know, there's so many color combinations that you could make just with hands, bezel, a dial, and obviously the strap. So it really opens up some avenues for customization to do with a theme, not just sort of copying a Rolex style. I guess you could argue that this is a Yachtmaster style watch, and actually it does look great on a black rubber strap as well, which I'll share with you. It's the same strap as this, but in black. Now, let's go through the mod list. So I started off with the Sharky SKX case. It's not the Heimdaller Sharky, it's the eBay Sharky, I should say. But in this case, I did this on another watch as well. I polished the lugs. And now to do that, I just used a polishing compound, and then I also used a Dremel type tool with a polishing brush head, and actually it polishes up really well and really quickly. So this just gives it a little bit more sort of reflection, a little bit more flashiness, I guess. So that was the only mod to the case. It did take a while, but I think for this kind of watch it has been worth it. I quite prefer a full polished case as well. Now moving on to the back, we have a completely sterile polished case back to kind of go with the rest of the watch's polishing. This was from NamokiMODS, and this was just $16. Really nice, fits perfect, great addition. Inside there is the NH36 movement, which comes with the eBay Sharky, and it is a genuine Seiko Instruments movement, so no worries there. Moving on to the bezel. Oh, sorry, I should mention the crown. Now, the crown is actually the standard Seiko, the cheap eBay Seiko crown, but it had that annoying shark logo on it. So I actually polished that out. And how I do this is I take the crown out, I put it into a drill or a grinder tool, just literally on the end, and I spin this against some sandpaper and then some polishing kind of compound and stuff, and we end up with this kind of radial finish crown. It's not perfect, but it removes that sort of link to the Sharky, just like the Caseback does. I could swap out the crown for a genuine Seiko crown if I wanted, but to be honest, I think I'm quite happy with this. Next is the bezel. Now, this is actually the Yobokies bezel, which I had bought as one of my first parts for a watch. Actually, it was supposed to go on my dual time watch, and it may still come back there, but I just wanted to try it on this, and actually I love the feeling of this bezel. This is by far the best bezel compared to the Yobokies one. Sorry, the Namoki's one, which I have here. This is the Yobokies bezel. It's a little more expensive, I think about $10 more expensive. I think it was around 50 or so, perhaps $50 for the bezel itself. But you know, if you inspect both side by side, this one is better made, and this one feels so much nicer to use as well. It's really light, really, you know, it sounds great. Those grooves underneath side are brilliant. Now, the one thing about this Yachtmaster style insert that you should know if you've not really handled one before is that it is almost impossible to actually use it because it is so dark. You can only really see the numbers at an angle, so this really isn't a useful bezel anymore. It's just something to look at, really. But having said that, it's a nice design, and I've got it in the middle. There is a double dome sapphire crystal with blue AR coating. As you can see, we can kind of see the dial through it quite clearly, even at an extreme angle. You'll notice as well, and I think this might be a trait of Namoki crystals specifically, but the crystal is inset just slightly from the bezel, even though this is their double domed sapphire. It is the one with the beveled edge though. So if you are doing a mod like this, I would go for the crystal without the beveled edge to give it completely sort of seamless look. With this type of bezel, it doesn't really matter because it's still quite a sharp bezel with all these extruded numbers. But if you had the option, if I was doing this again, I would definitely go for the non-beveled edge there. Now, moving on to the inside of the case here at the front, we've got a Namoki Grey dial, which is of course only there to match the exterior color of the car. But this is a nice dial. The color and the quality is quite good. It's really easy to fit. Everything's fine. The lume is not great. So if you've watched my previous video, you'll have seen a comparison on this one. It's worth reminding you that these two dials are exactly the same actually, except this one on the right has been polished, whereas this one hasn't. That's why it doesn't have the logos anymore. The printing of the logos is okay. It's not great quality, but to be honest, you hardly really notice it. It is quite small, especially that text at the bottom. You barely even see that because the seconds balance is often over it anyway. The handset is a set of Mercedes style hands from Namoki, no issues there. And the red tipped second hand from the original Seiko watch, Sharky SKX watch that I got from eBay, same as the case. That's the only other thing I've kept here actually. Around the outside of the dial, we have a polished Namoki chapter ring as well, and that kind of completes the transition from case to bezel to kind of case and then back down. And I think these Yachtmaster style watches really should have that polished side. It looks a little odd perhaps that there's a grey dial and then a polished side, but I think it plays with the light a lot. Remember, this is inspired by a sports car, a bit of a flashy car, so the watch has to be a bit flashy too, I think. So that is the overall build list. I'll give you a quick wrist shot of this one. As you can see by the strap, I've already worn it a fair bit. The strap, by the way, is, as I said, from WatchGecko. I'll share the exact details of it, but it's a 22mm lug width strap. And one thing that is worth pointing out is that it's got quite an aggressive taper down to, I think it's 18 down here. So it's quite well tapered, and I love tapered straps. I think all straps should be tapered like that. As you can see on wrist, it looks good. I love driving with this watch because you do get that combination of the colors that is just like my car. I wish I could do one thing, and that would be to find a numeraled dial similar to a Rolex Air King, because that would match the Speedo, and I'd probably install an orange second hand to also match the sports chrono clock in the car. But that perhaps we can leave for another time. I think this watch looks brilliant as it is. Again, with WatchGecko, nothing signed on the clasp, which is nice. I like to have preferably no logos at all on these kind of watches, but if I have to have them, I don't mind having the Namoki logo because they do offer some really good stuff. And I think it's worth giving them a bit of a shout out here. I'll do you a quick Lumeshot on this. By the way, my wrists are quite large, so if this watch did look small, it's because my wrists are about 7 3/4 inches. As you can see here, the hands light up straight away, just under UV light. And the dial does start to generate a bit of lume, but it's nowhere near as bright as the standard Seiko 5 or Seiko SKX lume. Also, the day of the week disc is still in there. It's just covered up by the dial, so I could reverse this watch back to a day date watch if I wanted, but for the sake of a watch that I might wear when driving on the weekend or something, you really don't care what day of the week it is when you're enjoying yourself. So that is that doesn't bother me so much, losing that complication for the sake of the more color on the dial. So yeah, there we have it, guys. I hope you enjoyed my little tour of this watch. Just one final thing is the cost price of this. I should have said that as I went along, apologies. The eBay SKX was $120 shipped. So these are all final prices for me. The coin edge bezel, I believe, was $50. So let me just update that on my sheet because I've got it set to a different one. The Yachtmaster insert was $42, so quite an expensive insert there. The Mercedes hands were $21. The grey dial was $36. The Caseback was $16. The chapter ring was $21. Again, quite expensive for a small part like that. And in this case, the strap was $35. So that brings us in a total of $341 for this watch. Now, if someone said I could make a watch for you for $340 that matches your car almost perfectly, I would have bitten their hand off. I think that's a great deal for a truly custom watch. It's not one that I'm planning to sell, but of course I could make another one for sale if someone was interested. But yeah, this is the watch inspired by my car, and I think if you're into cars, into Seiko mods, you should totally do this because it's quite enjoyable, and you know, you are wearing a piece unique, as it were, on your wrist, and you know, it's a conversation piece for those days at the track or on those drives with friends. So there you go. I hope you enjoyed that. Apologies, this video was quite long, but I did want to share as many details as I could. The base watches are great. I would highly recommend just buying them to mod. As a watch on its own, it's a bit rubbish, but when you mod them, you will enjoy it. And I will try and post some more tutorials on how-tos as well. So give this video a thumbs up, a like, and I will see you next time, hopefully. Have a great day.